Well, guys, I told you I would give you a video on what I see happening for silver. Everybody's been talking about silver forever, but there's just some basic things in here that will cause you to be like, oh, yeah. And yeah, so let's go through it. So, first of all, this is the silver chart dating back to 73. The high we had in the 80 in 1980, the high we had in 2011, and what's going on now. So for those of you who are not, I don't know, technically proficient or otherwise, there's a few things to show before I start drawing lines and all kinds of stuff. Okay. First of all, this pattern right here is what's called a cup and handle. Feel free to Google tradable patterns, and this is called a cup and handle. So although this cup and handle has happened over a 30-year period or more, it is still valid, and it's going to create an exponential expansion. So what does that basically mean? So this is a cup right here, and this is the handle. And basically the measurement of the cup is just using my crude measuring tool of just using an arrow, rising up to the top there. We basically add that to the handle. And you can see that, you know, without even thinking about it, silver is going to go to like 60 bucks, okay? But nobody wants 60 bucks. Everybody's always talking about these crazy, crazy, crazy numbers and valuations, right? And that is in the cards, but I'm going to show you how that's going to happen. So first of all, let's look at the moving averages. There's a 50 and the 200-day. And as I mentioned in the other video, anytime you get a cross, you're going to see you're basically in a situation where you're going to be getting a rise or a turn in the market. So what do we have here? Back in 2004, we had a cross, and of course, sure as shit, we had a nice rise up, a return down to the 200-day and bobbing along. But then, so technically, we're still in the bull market of silver. And there's a few things to look at as far as above and beyond the just the moving averages. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So this is the couple things to note is that number one, we have the radial. So the radial is, you know, just drawing it out here. You see you got a touch point here, touch point here, touch point on the previous high. So you can see if we expand this out a little bit, whoops, hang on here, I'm going to move the whole chart. You can see that we are very likely we're right now coming in and touching on the moving averages. And I feel very strongly that we're going to be visiting the 38% Fibonacci mark, which is somewhere around 19 and a half, 20 bucks. But we're right in this range here, okay? Now, once that particularly happens, this is what's called a flag pattern. So back this video up, you want to look up what's called a cup and handle, and you also want to look up what's called a bullish flag. This is a bullish flag, meaning that the flag is basically a period where everybody sits around deciding if they're what they're going to do. You have the dumb money coming in, and everybody's getting worried and all that shit. And so, and it essentially becomes, this is what's called a descending wedge, and the upside of a descending wedge is higher, okay? So just to give you, so going back to that measurement I showed you there previously, where 60 bucks is in the cards without even thinking about it, we take just a raw measurement on this move. This move as well is going to verify that as we're going to rise up to about the $40 level. I can see that happening by the latest December of 2023. And but likely we're going to overshoot that very much because when you deal with sentiment, we have visited this $50 thing a couple of times over the last 30 years. And when it hits there again, it's going to just shoot right past. And I very much expect that we are going to be visiting this $58 to $60. $60 is a nice round figure, so it's likely what we're going to be visiting. So that's the first thing to be considered. If you want to know if the bottom is really in, I'm going to show you something that no one will ever show you. because there's lots of guys who do like silver forecasting and things like that because it's sort of the holy grail of investing because it's such a hugely undervalued thing and it's being purposely held down by the powers that be. But that even though they think they're doing it on purpose, it's actually part of all market trading because real silver and gold, of course, are real money, and they're just basically acquiring as much as they can while the paper is still worth something. So what is this figure right here back in 1980? Okay, we can't do traditional charting based on because currencies have fluctuated so much. But this figure right here, this $177, that is the inflation adjusted amount that silver was in 1980. And so what happens when we go to that point? We go to the recent high as a trend line. And isn't it interesting? I'll show you guys something real keen that you may not have realized. See, it comes in the bottom. You see we had this drop down here in 2020 down to like $12. And there it is, lining perfectly. So that means any downward movement in silver of any consequence is over. Okay. So yeah, that's basically we're going to see a rise up here. I'm expecting us to rise to the any day now. We're going to be having it's going to be cresting. We're probably going to touch this moving average, and then we're going to get a quick turnaround. So that's why this goes in line with what I was saying before about as well, expecting some kind of crisis to come up shortly. But the inherent problem was, and then of course, what then comes into play is that we then look for upside targets. And this is all related in US dollar terms. But, once this thing takes off, the sky's the limit because basically it's going to be the fear trade. The fear trade is going to be everybody just clamoring for anything of value. So imagine a world for a moment where, you can't stockpile oil. Like you fill your car, maybe a can or two, but that's about it. Stocks are going to be in the toilet because companies will be laying off like crazy because of, again, it's all going to come down to the, what fuels the market is the buying power of the populace and just buying anything that different companies sell. And there's just going to be a paralysis in the system as currencies are coming apart and everyone's going to be sort of stuck in a state of limbo. And so, yeah, silver and gold, this is when they're going to be shining. As far as when that's going to happen, well, one of an easy measure that we can undertake real quick, just give me a moment, is to use one of my favorite tools. That's the time expansion. So, time to there. Okay, so, just based on raw time, 1980, we've got a low happening here in the middle, then we got a good way is to go to a high. And you can see I'm expecting that by 2026, things are really going to be up there in the stratosphere as far as, and that'll actually be a decent exit point. The inherent problem, though, is that knowing when it's going to take off. And, there's a couple of ways you can do that. If we go into a more precise measurement where we look at the action most recently, because, yeah, we can look at 30-year time frame. Sure, we can. But if we take the low to the most recent high, okay, you can see this is right near the low here. And again, this is also reinforcing that 2026 top. Or heck, we can go one step further. And we can also see the low here. And again, we're also reinforcing, like this is 2024, but I think by again, looking at this as being the low, if you're a long-term investor, things going up. Now, the problem with silver is that it's not very portable. You can buy a lot of it right now. So if you're fixed in one location, great. You can get vaulting if you want. I would not trust vaulting in the West. I think that things are going to come apart in such a shitty way that companies that are vaulting stuff are going to be just handing stuff over. Governments are going to mandate it. We've seen, if you learned anything from the pandemic, you've learned that these companies that talk about how stable and secure they are, it doesn't matter. When countries need resources, they're going to take them. So if there is any vaulting you can think of that's in, I'll put it out there and say if there's vaulting in Russia, I would trust it far more than I would trust it in the West. But if you're going to stay where you are no matter what, acquiring as much as you can now will be good because you know, sure, when there's famine and stuff going on, people are going to be losing their minds to get basic things like food and stuff. But there will be stability that will return, even though there may not be a large amount of variety when it comes to food. There will be basic food that is going to be available. Because regardless of the fear mongering, the world still is going to be able to make potatoes and wheat and fish and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it just may not be the huge uh, amount of processed food, but that may be a good thing, right? But as far as securing and stabilizing your resources, silver would be a good thing. I'm going to do a video on gold as well, just to give you an idea where gold's going, because gold, of course, is more portable. And, again, we refer to history. Gold is also always going to be the asset of last resort because it is highly valued and very portable. Silver, not so much so. I mean, if you have, 1 ounce of silver is worth, what's it at right now? $20. So $20 into $2,000, 100 ounces of silver is equal to one of gold, right? So, but there's going to be border controls. There's going to be a lot of things. And feel free to comment and ask questions about what my take is as far as how government's going to react. But basically, you just have to, you basically look at the situation and say, okay, this is the way the government's handled the quote unquote crisis with the coup. They were very unreasonable. So I think they're going to be very unreasonable in regard to a currency crisis, especially when the country has no viable option to get funding. That's why there was gold confiscation back in the annals of time. Is that governments needed something firm to be able to trade with. So it's a deep topic, and I'm certainly not meaning to alarm, but if you're looking at places to put your money right now, I mean, real estate's hugely overvalued, but they're not making any more of it. So if you can find something you're comfortable with, that's one place. Um, Gold and silver, sure, or legacy companies. Like and again, I stress that if you have the ability to invest in Russian companies, or and not even necessarily Chinese companies, because I don't know that China is going to be you're going to be able to access this stuff. Maybe more so Russia. I think Russia is going to be the gateway to the dealing with the East because it's tribal. They're largely populated by Anglo-Saxons, and so they're going to be more inclined to deal with the Anglo-Saxons than versus the Chinese, who will then turn inward and will have ultimate animosity due to the conflicts, et cetera, that have occurred worldwide. And just generally, yeah, nobody wants to deal with someone they've had a fist fight with. So yeah, I think that's something to be considered. So once again, just to sum up, $60 is a no-brainer for silver, as you can see by this map. It's all measured. This is all measured in American dollars, which are going to be just basically an exercise in hilarity. I would. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to correlate silver to the Russian. I'm going to do a video coming up on the Russian currency because you're going to see something. That's something else. As I've said, you can put your money in the Russian currency and you'll be so happy you did because it's going to appreciate like you wouldn't believe. Like we're talking Bitcoin type numbers as far as investment is concerned. Anyway, that is it. So like I said, if you're seeing this on YouTube, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I post all kinds of wacky shit from how to be a better person to fixing your car to stuff I'm selling. But sometimes I'll put shit like this up because it's an interesting talking point, and there's a lot of people that don't provide a lot of clarity in this kind of stuff. Like a lot of traders and stuff who talk about theoretical things. But this is just actionable information you can use. Once again, the God's numbers, which are the Fibonacci sequences, they're showing everything that's going on here. The trend going back to 1981, that's showing what's going on here. Moving averages are showing what's going on here, and the overall measurement showing what's going on here. So, like I said, these are all no-brainers, as opposed to the pie in the sky stuff like Bitcoin or other stuff, which, yeah, sure, you can chart it, but the underlying value in it is not so great. Now, when we get this dumped down here real quick, I'm not sure that silver is going to be any cheaper or not because premiums will likely rise. Like if you want to buy 1 ounce of silver right now, I think it's almost a $10 premium per ounce. So, there's a good argument just to buying it now and not worrying about it. Trying to time the bottom is always good for a laugh, but Not exactly the most stellar thing, but we may very likely, this trend line you see right here, we may very likely going to incur it very shortly. And in line with this Fibonacci thing, as late as, hang on one second, just draw it real quick. You know, as late as August, like if we get a pull down here to like 16 and a half, 17 bucks by August, that'd be a good time to buy. Set your calendar or buy it now. That's if you're fixed in position, because you can't travel with this shit. So yeah, there it is. Thanks, folks.